Good evening and welcome to the Danish Countryside Chapel. Tonight, a little bit something different. There have been many sermons that I have given over the last, what has it been now? A year and a half that we've done this ministry on YouTube already. There's about 130 sermons on there. I get rid of the duds as I go, and I try to keep the good ones. But the Danish Countryside Chapel, I just wanted to explain something here. The Danish Countryside Chapel, I just leaned on the altar. I'm tired. I've been out in the vineyard all day. You know, that sun zaps you at the end of the day, it seems like. But the Danish Countryside Chapel was created 2 years ago as a house, as a cocoon, as a base, an HQ, a headquarters, so that another plan that was further down the line in motion could take place. And the Danish Countryside Chapel and everything around its design, the YouTube channel that supports it, the website, danishcountrysidechapel.org, that supports that I'd like you to please go to. There's over 420 3 to 5 minute reads in there. I'm trying to get it published. If there's any publishers out there, I'm looking for a home. It's ready to publish. You can pick and choose which you like. There's 420 completely different entries, although some of them have themes up to three and sometimes 5 parts. I don't have too many of those though. But the Danish Countryside Chapel was created for people who are what I call unchurched. People that had been, maybe their family had been in churches at some other time, and maybe grandma went to church or whatever, but then it fell away and people weren't getting confirmed, and then before you know it, people weren't even getting baptized. And as the owner of the Danish Countryside Winery out here, you know, I marry a lot of people, and these people know that I'm an ordained Lutheran pastor, and they come out here and I baptize their children. And I asked them earnestly to find a church. People are so shy about going to churches right now. And it makes it even harder for the smaller churches in these little communities to survive that have been here for, 100 or 150 years. They've been looked at with suspicion, all these established churches, I think, quite long enough. I am perfectly fine with all the evangelical movements everywhere. I think they're great. I think everybody that loves Jesus is great. So let's make that clear. I want to make that very clear. The Danish Countryside Chapel is housed in the upper level of where the winery is. So it's almost like a monastery the way this all pans out. But you come up to the area where I am now, and it's a 2-story area. I keep my office up here for the most part on the upper level. And I got a great view of my vineyard up there. When I'm not out there, I can look at it from in here. It also keeps me from letting things go by because I have to look at them every day out the window. But anyway, the Danish Countryside Chapel is housed here and in the 2nd and 3rd level and of the Danish Countryside Winery. And I baptize a lot of people here. What we do here is we take people and we find them churches, or they can stay here and go to church. I also have the Bielfeldt Lutheran Church that I'm pastor of, and I'm very pleased and proud to be their pastor. They are a congregation that is, the Bielfeldt Lutheran Church is a congregation that is exactly the prototype of congregation that I am talking about. It is a congregation that has true real world between 80 and 120 members. And we have to think real world. That's the only place I'm going to go military on you here. We have to think real world. We can't look at everything as some sort of a intellectual exercise. This is going to have to take some work, and we're going to actually have to do a few things. But they're not going to be bad things. They're going to be good things, and they're going to be good for everybody. The chapel here houses the new League of Rural Churches. The League of Rural Churches was a concept that Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt and I have developed over the last 2 years with the help of Chris Meyer, who is my best friend who lives in Nuremberg, Germany. Thanks to technology and computer technology that talks well now between languages, we have created a number of good things. This League of Rural Churches, here's what it's going to be. It's going to be a place where churches who can't find pastors, who can't seem to find any support, and who do, many of them ironically, have plenty of money. Now, there are other churches that don't have those exact characteristics, and maybe some of them have lots of money or don't have lots of members, but they don't have lots of money. But the one common denominator that I keep finding again and again is they don't have pastors. And they not only don't have pastors, they don't have any way of finding pastors. And it's not because the synods and the associations that they belong to don't care. That's not what we're saying. Not one bit. The League of Rural Churches is established and is going out. There will be letters coming out this week to many, many churches, and I hope we give them a lot of hope. These churches are facing significant challenges, including, again, the absence of a pastor. And they're out of fresh ideas, and they're frustrated because they've even contacted the institutions that educate these new pastors, these seminarians, and there just aren't enough of them. And so the only alternative is to go to the regional concept. The regional concept is well and fine, and the regional churches get what we would call in the business world a financial windfall, or at least a windfall of new members for a short period of time. But they're always just a fraction of the people that would have went to the church in their indigenous communities. And so what ends up happening is the same thing in business. When you close a bunch of branches, the branches that remain open goes way up, makes the managers look like they're doing an incredible job. But the truth is the overall market has taken a hit. So while you close all these places and you get rid of all this extra weight, you're jettisoning weight, you're closing this and closing that and getting rid of all this excess weight, it costs us all this money. Okay, so now we've got down to these places, and these places, oh, they're going crazy. Yeah, they're going crazy because now they have too many new members, so they can't get to all of them. And the churches that are closing up in all these small communities, never to be open again because these facilities cost so much to build that in today's setting it would be impossible to do. We let them fall into disrepair while these short boons into these other churches last for a while, but then the people get sick and tired of having to drive that far, and before you know it, an evangelical movement shows up in their hometown and they join it. And I don't blame them a bit. I want to make that clear. I don't blame you a bit for joining evangelical free churches and open Bible churches and non-denominational churches. I don't blame you a bit. Because we have not done well the last 40 years, at least, at managing our people. It's like we just thought that magically pastors would just appear out of nowhere and everybody would get to make between $80,000 and $100,000 a year and everybody's happy. Well, that's fine, but these churches cannot afford it. And the pastors that they're going to need to run these churches cannot afford to spend the money that they're going to have to spend to get a Master's of Divinity, which is 90 credits, or close to it, which is almost another bachelor's degree. These churches, they struggle because they wonder about empathy and they wonder about urgencies from some of the other churches because nobody seems to be that concerned about helping them survive. The weight of their situation is grave. And instead of gobbling them up into other churches and hoping everybody comes, which never happens, you'll maybe salvage 30%. And that's, I think, pretty, I'm sorry to say, I think that's pretty accurate. You're going to keep 1 in 3 members, and it's a lose situation all the way around. Unless they're going directly to another church, but here's the thing, they're not going directly to another church. They're not going to church. And there is no confirmation, and there is no going to Awanas, and there is no, baptism for the Calvinists. There isn't any of it because they're just not going to church anymore. And what's really sad is these churches that are on the verge of closing because they don't have a pastor. You see, that's the antecedent. That's the first thing. They don't have a shepherd. So if we need to look at this logically for a second, let's look at this logically. We got 100 sheep, and they have no shepherd. And they haven't had a shepherd for some of them more than 2 years. And all we can do is throw our hands up and say, well, we're doing the best we can. And that I accept. I know we're doing the best we can. What I advocate is allowing a Master's of Ministry. A Master's of Ministry is I believe, 50 credits. It's not as much. So you're not gonna, you maybe won't have to take Greek. I already speak German, so it doesn't bother me that much. I could take German, I suppose. I have a master's of ministry. I'm ordained. And I have preached in a number of different Lutheran synods and denominations to help them out. And I've also been pastor of 3 LCMC churches as a contract non-certified pastor because I do not have a master's of divinity. I believe that I am fully competent, and I believe that my record proves it. I think my grade point average of 3.45 also proves it. I also have additional credits beyond that, which push my grade point up to 3.58 on the way to the Masters of Divinity. I've decided instead of going to that route, I'm going directly to the doctorate route because I can. That's why we get good grades. I'm going to go after a Doctor of Ministry degree. I'm taking a year off, and I'm going to work on the League of Rural Churches this entire time. So with a few people out there in these small churches, all over Iowa and Nebraska and South Dakota and northern Missouri, all the way to the Mississippi River, I'm going to take this show on the road. And we're going to come to your council meetings, and we're going to show you ways that you can find people in your very communities that you can turn into pastors. And it's not by cutting corners, it's not by doing anything wrong, it's not Katie bar the door, we're going to do whatever we say. No, we are going to create seminarians out of people in your churches. People who always wanted to be a pastor, but they just never knew how or they never dared ask. Well, now all you people, this is Loren Christensen talking to you. I'm talking to you as sincerely as I possibly can. If there was ever a time when the church needs you to step forward and say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a student, and I'm going to work toward being a pastor. Because when we get you in there as a student at the Institute of Lutheran Theology at Brookings, South Dakota, where Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt is president, you will find out that there are alternatives to this situation. There are alternatives to this situation. You can send a person to go to school, and all they need is a computer, and not even that great a one. You can do the whole thing on Teams. It literally costs a third of what it would cost to go to a brick and mortar university. And guess what? They're fully accredited, and they are as accredited now as the Chicago School of Divinity, which means that they are in the top accreditation tier. So you can send people from your church in your town to study in their houses and their churches to become pastors. And we can make it so a master's of ministry is enough. A master of ministry is desired, and we expect you to continue toward that. But in order to be fully a pastor in a certified church, I personally believe a master of ministry should be in this situation particularly enough. In the military, when we needed warrant officers, we created warrant officers. Warrant officers are officers that are special because times call for it and positions call for it. We're in a situation right now where if we can't fill these pulpits, if we can't find a way under the normal conditions that we've always ascribed to for the last at least 60 years, we're going to have to change or we will DIE. I was in business for many years before I became a clergyman, and I'm still in business. And I'm telling you, this current dog don't hunt. We have got to come up with a way to make pastors that doesn't cost $100,000 to get. For pay, first of all. We're going to have to create pastors that we can send to school from our own congregations that are the congregations themselves are going to be paying the tuitions for these people. And we're going to set it up so the congregation's church board gets to see the grades that the person that is going into the ministry is getting, so that way they know what they're getting for their money. And you better believe the kingdom of the left, as Martin Luther taught to it, applies here. The kingdom of the left is the kingdom of business. It's of getting things done. It's of mowing the lawn. It's of getting new carpets. It's a business of business. And Martin Luther believed emphatically that kingdom of the left had to be managed well so we could spend as little time on it as possible, so the kingdom of right, which is the kingdom of worship and praise and happiness and choir and all the things that we want our churches to be, but it's got to start somewhere. And it's got to start with work. And this work is going to partially include a little bit of toleration on the behalf of the establishment overall, so that we can get pastors ordained properly and not have to sneak people through the system and figure out ways to get things done, and this guy can do that and we'll call him this. No, that we should be able to go to seminary and finish and be ordained with a Master of Ministry, going further toward a Master of Divinity. In other words, when you get your Master of Ministry, if your church is cool with that, then we're cool with that. If your church would like you to continue to get a Master's of Divinity, then that would be up to them if they want to continue to send to school. But here's the cool part. Because the church is making you a seminarian, it gives you a virtually unlimited time. We'll say between 5 years, 6 years, 7 years even to finish it. It's okay. Take your time. Learn the material properly. During that time, you will be treated as a seminarian, which means you can inhabit the pulpit at any one of the churches that I can think of in just about any denomination of Lutheranism. And we want to be friends with all of you. And I mean that means all of you. And you know who you are. I'm not going to go through all the synods. I'm not going to do that to myself, because I'll forget somebody. But we want to get along with all of you. We want to love all of you. We want to help Methodists. We want to help churches of Christ that are out in the country. Baptists, if they'll have us. We want to help everybody that has a small church and a small community survive and find a pastor and have a place to go to get them educated. And the other good thing for these churches, when you're paying for a seminarian, you're not going to have to worry about paying them $70 or $80 or $100,000 a year. If you had a parsonage, that would help a lot. But this person's probably already got another career. You can do more than one thing at a time. I'm going to say it again. You can do more than one thing at a time. You can own a business or have another job or do any number of things. Be a teacher and still be a pastor in one of these small parishes. It doesn't take that much time. It doesn't. And those of you pastors that are listening to me, you know that yes, there is much work to do sometimes, but a lot of the time in these small churches, it isn't that pressing. A part-time pastor could do it. My argument is there is no such thing as a part-time pastor. So if we can chuck that out the window, that would be great. Because we're not looking for part-time pastors. We're looking for full-time pastors who want to go for Masters of Divinity, or Masters of Ministry, at the Institute of Lutheran Theology, which is in Brookings, South Dakota. You can look it up on the internet. Like I said, it's fully accredited. We can create our own pastors just like Martin Luther did back in the very beginning. And we can put people behind not one, not two, but all of these small churches and keep them open and educate people in their very hometown. And just to set your mind at ease a little bit, the prophet in his own town thing doesn't work for this. We're not prophets. We're pastors. We're shepherds. We're sheep keepers. We're humble. We're humble. We just need somebody that we can call pastor that's going to help us and is going to come over to our house when we need him and is going to help our cousin who has a drinking problem and who is going to listen to us when we are completely out of line and want to rant at somebody. You can create your own pastors. We have a way to help you that will cost you exponentially almost less money. While you're educating these people at the Institute of Lutheran Theology and paying their tuition, which will never end up being more than $5,000 a year, you're going to have a pastor behind your pulpit. You'd be paying pulpit supply anyway. Now this person can be your pulpit supply. So take that money that you would have done that and put that into their salary so they can have a stipend for their work. And what you've got is a dedicated student that's going to be a pastor someday real soon. Imagine revitalizing your church, reinvigorating your church, breathing new life into its mission. The League of World Churches offers a unique path, building pastors from scratch, right in their hometowns. Right in their hometowns. Pastor Mark, a guy I knew, he is a farmer. He's got a heart for ministry. He's up in South Dakota. This guy is setting it on fire in a church where he's going to the ILT, he's going to the Institute of Lutheran Theology, and I've told him about the League of World Churches and what we're going to be doing, and he's excited, and all these other guys are excited because there's a way that we can do this, where we can educate these people using modern technology and modern techniques, where they can have professors that are right in front of them giving the exact same lecture that they would get as if they were in a brick and mortar building. I stand witness I learned more than I ever dreamed I would have learned. I was just like everybody else. I thought, well, these online courses and, whatever. No. I got a great education from the Institute of Lutheran Theology in Brookings, South Dakota. Dr. Bielfeldt, he has done a good thing for Lutheranism. And while we're at it, I might as well mention since you know now that the Danish Countryside Chapel houses the League of Rural Churches. We're in a 120-year-old barn, by the way. Cattle barn. What a good place for the headquarters of the League of Rural Churches, right? This League of Rural Churches will be administered from here. I will be the president. My board members are people that I think that you should know. We are going to add a couple people to that, pretty prominent names. The president of my board of directors for the League of Rural Churches is Reverend Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt, who is also president of the Institute of Lutheran Theology. And I'm so proud of him. He's done such a good job. I say this, I mean this. They have so many good professors there. John Rolfson, who is an LCMC pastor. He was director of the Iowa Synodic Association of the Lutheran Churches in Mission for Christ. Also, Dr. Swenson, Dr. Timothy Swenson, is on my board of directors, and he is a fine professor and a farmer. Both Dr. Bielfeldt and Dr. Swenson are farmers and ranchers. See, so they're just like we are. So here Dennis is running an institute, what's turning into a university. He's still farming. Dr. Swenson is too. Pastor Rolfson, he is to be a banker. We've got great people on our board of directors. I'm not going to lie to you, we're poor just like every few other 501c3 charity. But I want to tell you this today. If those of you who have made it this far are listening to me, we have an address, the League of Rural Churches, 1398 280th Street, Exira, Iowa, 50076. Every dime will go right into the League of Rural Churches. It's going to be used for nothing but taking care of these churches and keeping them open, and hopefully someday giving me a salary. But for right now, I'm working for free. It means that much to me. This network of struggling churches that I'm describing, it will create, having me as this person going from these churches, helping their seminarians, it will create a synergy. Because you see, after we get your seminarians going, after they get going to school, me, Pastor Loren Christensen, I'm going to run around and I'm going to make sure that things are going okay. I'm going to ask if they need anything. I'm going to be your liaison between the Institute of Lutheran Theology and you, because the League of Rural Church is exactly that. Those of you who are in agriculture will understand this. You can't be in the FFA unless you're in VOAG. But if you're in vocational agriculture, the FFA is available to you. Well, you churches, all of you are small churches. You have to be a small church to be eligible. Big churches, I'm sorry, this is one time when you're going to be excluded. I'm talking congregations of 200 people or less that are settled in the countryside or in small towns that need help to keep their doors open. Because I'm telling you, I, Loren Christensen, this is my life. This is my calling. This is what God sent me to do. And I know there will be opposition to what I'm proposing here. But I am not radical. This is not radical. This is expedient. And it's austere too, by the way. Because it won't cost these churches that much money to keep seminarians going behind their pulpits. And that way we won't have to keep pulling other pastors out of retirement and having them do work that they shouldn't have to be doing, because these guys, these older men and women, have the right to retire and enjoy their life too and be a fill-in and not a have to be. That's not retirement. Please support our network. You small churches that are on your last leg, some of you have a pile of money, some of you have nothing, some of you want to have all of that and get things working right. You have churches that need various structural upgrades. I don't mean structural upgrades, but like painting and improvements and things like that. We could work together to help each other find contractors that would give us the best deals to help these old churches get refitted and reset for a future, because there is a future. There are churches, some of you that have, gone more than a year or 2 years. Now is not the time to quit. Now is the time not to wait. Now is the time not to wait. Not an hour, not a second, not a minute. Act now. I'm going to be sending you out letters soon. If you'd like to call me on my personal phone is 515-360-4810. And we can get started talking right away about how we're going to get you a seminarian going in your church. It's that big of a deal. We have to struggle. We have to turn our struggling churches into thriving beacons of hope for other churches. Even if our populations are cut in half again in the next 50 years from a demographic standpoint, things will look largely the same and towns will still need churches. Support the League of World Churches. There will be much more to come, and I will be talking to most all of you that are in these churches that do not have pastors very soon. And I ask anybody from the denominations and the synods, please give the League of World Churches a chance. We mean no harm. All we want to do is help. I pray you